Hey guys, what's up? We're back here. Joining me today is Jay Torres.
How's it going?
He's the jeweler, Jay the jeweler we talked about in the previous episodes. Jay was the one who basically was the foot in the door to the jewelry business on this. When me and Herman started talking about this, your name came up a lot. He designed it. I knew the whole 3D part of it, where you can just like model it and 3D print it, and then. But for the most part, it's like the stories. All I heard was you handed it over to a jeweler at that point.
Well, not a jeweler, but you hand it over to somebody that does the casting for the most part. A jeweler is somebody more that sells jewelry.
Oh, okay.
So
what do you call the people that make it?
Well, you take it to a casting house.
Uh-huh.
So casters.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely a unique process, and we're kind of learning as we go along for the most part. I haven't been designing jewelry for all that long, so it's like we're taking this trip pretty much all together.
Yeah.
So we're learning the differences between 100% wax based models and the different kind of changes you have to make to the investments when you're dealing with resins that are 3D printed out. And it's going to be a learning process, but I really think that once you dial it in, you could get some really beautiful casts out of it. But it's definitely gonna take a little bit of time. But I'm more than, to be honest, I'm more than happy to really get into that side of it, because I think once you understand the differences in the investments that you use compared to the wax-based models, and you get that dialed in, you could really start making some really nice, unique pieces.
So yeah, I mean, this definitely has been a learning experience here. So we made an actual ring. We got two here. These were casted in silver.
Yeah, 925 sterling silver.
So he's got one that was unfinished and one that's further along. And I mean, they got their little flaws in here, but I'm so blown away by what we got here, because we saw a project from start to finish.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's what these rings were, is to see what we could take from sketch to 3D to 3D printed, and take something over to casting. And unfortunately, say like if you go to a casting house in downtown LA, they pretty much whatever way they set up their their casting, that's what you get. And they're not gonna take your two pieces and you can't give them any special instructions and be like, hey, for these two rings, I need you to need to follow this exact burnout cycle, and I need you to use this investment. They're gonna tell you to go fuck off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're making hundreds of pieces, so
they just throw it on their production line.
Just throw it on their production line, and what you get is what you get. And they tell you beforehand too. They'll tell you, I don't think these, have you worked? They'll ask you first, have you worked with this resin before? And, has anybody else casted this resin? And I told them no, because we had just bought that resin, that Solus cast resin. And, it was our first time, casting out with it. But I mean, really, they, being as the perfectionist I am with jewelry, they were pretty rough.
Okay. You know what, man? I want to cheers to a finished.
Yeah,
to
for
a finished
sure.
idea.
We got it, first piece done.
Pretty
That's
good.
pretty good.
Yeah. Trying a new whiskey here.
Yeah. So I think now, I had kind of like an aha moment yesterday where I was like, I'm just gonna buy all the equipment and I'm gonna set it up and I'm just gonna do it myself.
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn, the differences, in the processes. And since really resins are going to be, getting better as they go along, but at this point right now, they're still kind of,
There's a hit and miss.
they're still temperamental, where you really have to dial things in to get what you want out of them. And there's a few YouTube channels that I watch, and I've been getting some really good information off there. So I think right when I start, there's a few things that I want to try, investment wise, and burnout cycle wise, and everything, and see if we could get
What's that process like? So we 3D print something in the casting material. It gets handed over to you. What's the next step?
Yeah. So what I do is then I go to downtown, and there's what seems like hundreds of places to get your jewelry casted out. I think it's probably the second, maybe only to New York, when it comes to jewelry districts,
really?
Size wise and everything. Yeah. So there's pretty much everything you need in the jewelry district, depending on what you're trying to do with your project. But I have two casting houses that I've been going to for a while already, and I walked in, and right when they saw the color of the ring, because they usually use a very specific wax based 100% wax based 3D print that is like the industry standard.
Yeah.
But those machines are like $60,000-$70,000.
Yeah,
right?
you're a pro at
that. It's
a
3D system, machine that's made for professionals. So when I'm thinking when they see any other color resin, they look at it, and he just kind of shaked his head a little, and he was like,
he already knows.
He knows. They know. You know what I mean? They know, because they know for the most part, you have to take usually some type of special instruction to get a good clean cast. So I just from what the claims were on Solis's website, you needed to take no special type of procedures or no special investments, no special burnout times. It's it's gonna burn out just like wax and everything, and very lofty goals. But when I was like, well, we'll try it, but I kind of had a feeling already that it wasn't gonna come out super clean, but I didn't think it was gonna come out that rough neither.
Yeah, for what we got for the first one.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, for the first one, it's not. I'm not disappointed.
Yeah,
the best thing I could say is we went through all the processes together, and we took something that was subconsciously just somebody's idea, and we turned it into a physical piece, and we all worked well with each other, what I mean, which is very important. And it got done, and yeah, it's going to be something that you could wear. And I mean, you could go back and maybe 6 months from now, or maybe sooner, look at that piece and then look at the pieces that we're making and be like, well, this was just something another lesson that had to be learned on the road to like really kind of dialing it in. But I would say the good thing that came out of this piece, if anything, it like really got me to the point where I'm like, I want to do my own casting.
Oh, that's cool.
So it definitely motivated me to want to learn the processes and try different resins and see which one is really going to work well for the designs that we're working on, because different resins have different profiles. So depending on what you're working on, if it's a heavier ring, there's certain resins that work better for heavier jewelry. There's other resins that work better for smaller jewelry that have a lot of detail, like for setting stones and everything like that. So you have to, it's not just at this point right now, it's not a one resin fits all. So you got to kind of find the resin that's going to work best for the type of jewelry that you're going to be designing. And I'm not sure. We're going to keep trying a couple of pieces with the Solis cast, but I think there might be better resins out there that might fit what we're trying to do.
Sure.
More, I want to say more better, but just is definitely gonna help us like really get that detail that we're trying to get out of our pieces, because our pieces are heavy. You know, they tend to be a little more solid.
Yeah, this is a solid ring. Like there's no shallow in the
Yeah,
back here.
so maybe Solus resin doesn't work well for this style of ring, or not material, ring size and weight, but it might work really well for, you know, something that has to have, you know, a lot of prongs in it to set stones and everything like that. Okay. So I'm not saying it's a bad resin. It just maybe might work better for other type of designs.
The detail this printer gets, it's pretty impressive. You know, it's a small build plate, so you can't do much with it. But compared to the Photon S, you know, it's like the Photon needs a lot of supports for it to like not fall apart on itself. And then you do get detail, but it's not as like fine edge, I guess you can say. Where with a Solus one, you can put like minimal supports and you get all the detail. You know.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you know, you know, this is the first generation Solus, so they've come out with a Solus Pro.
Yeah,
I think about a year or two ago. And really, to be honest, other than being first and foremost, you don't gotta have a big ass DLP projector next to it or not. So they built that in. They built that into the printer, and I'm pretty sure that the Solus one still holds its weight against the Solus Pro, because this printer prints out very clean, you know, crisp prints. In some cases, you can't even see the print lines.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and that's always pretty awesome.
This printer is awkward,
especially if you could, like I told you at the beginning when I brought it over here, if you could master the Solus one, shit, you could master any type of 3D printer, because this thing is a pain in the ass, but when you got it dialed in, it's gonna work. It's gonna work for you.
Yeah, you know, it's just like there's 3 parts to this printer, like where these other printers, mind you, these are newer. This is
it's older technology.
Yeah, so you know it's understandable, but it's just like there's 3 parts to it. You got the projector, you got the printer itself, and you have to have a dedicated laptop to it too.
Yeah,
you can't do anything with that laptop while it's printing.
I will say that one thing about this printer, it is very well built.
Yeah,
I mean, not to say, you know, like the Photon S is, you know, not well built, but I mean it's pretty much an all metal construction. You know, it looks, when you look at it, you're like, that looks pretty sturdy.
The only thing that worries me about this printer is a projector. You know?
Yeah, sooner or later, it's gonna be an issue. And I've came to that realization that if that bulb ever burns out, trying to find a replacement bulb for it, because I've seen, you know, in the forums and everything, could be a pain in the ass, because that projector is discontinued.
Well, you're the Mexican picker, man. You can probably find it.
Well, you know, I mean, there's only so much. It's not like I'm randomly gonna find a, you know, bulb for a 7-8 year old, you know, DLP.
There's somebody at a garage sale with this projector right now.
Well, I'm hoping they're singing my praises, because I definitely like to have an extra bulb for it. But until that time comes, you know, we still have, you know, a good amount of time, because that thing's pretty much brand new.
Yeah.
By the time, put it this way, by the time if it conks out and it's not working no more, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be way better printers out there, and you know, they're gonna be reasonably priced where we could, you know, get the same type of, you know, prints that we get out of the Solus at like maybe even, you know, not even half, even, you know, even less than that, because this thing came out when the Solus came out, I think it was like $5,000, $6,000. Now, I mean, you got printers that are printing, you know, printing quality, you know, as you know, on par with this for like $600-700, and they have 8K,
Yeah.
mono screens and everything.
Yeah,
You know
everything's
what I
getting
mean?
better. Wasn't the first printer what's that company? The Formlabs. It was just one laser. It was like one laser
Yeah.
painting. Now it's an actual screen. Which when you think about it, a screen that makes like so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, when Formlabs, came out, before that, most 3D printers were the size of like a Xerox copy machine,
Mm.
right?
They were engineer tools.
And they were hundreds of thousands of dollars. So Formlabs came out with the first stereolithic tabletop 3D printer and automatically got sued by 3D Systems because they were like, hey, that's our proprietary,
I remember hearing
tech.
that. Yeah.
And then luckily they came to, an agreement. And, I was probably one of them first in line to get, one of the Formlabs, because I was, before that, if you wanted to design jewelry, a lot of it was all hand carved.
Yeah, I see a lot of that. I mean? So ever since
it's still prevalent, but
I mean,
it costed thousands of dollars to even make one ring. It costed thousands of dollars.
Yeah, because it's all hand tooled. You start with a piece of wax and then you come out with a ring.
And in most places, before, if you were bringing in 1-2 pieces, they wouldn't even want to do business with you. But now, as 3D printing has become, a lot more prevalent in the industry, a lot of casting houses are taking smaller orders because, you could be, living in a small apartment even, and you could be creating these amazing jewelry pieces because now they're as big as a coffee machine.
Yeah,
they don't take up as much space, and they're not, they're affordable. So just within the last 5 years, the whole...
Have you talked to any traditional like jewelry designers about like 3D stuff?
Yeah, actually, I've run into a couple old school guys that were carving, everything by hand, and were carving everything, in wax, and they didn't, it was, I would say probably like about 2 years ago. So even 2 years ago from now, like the industry has, come a long way, 3D printing wise and jewelry wise. They still were like, oh yeah, we're not on board with it yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was kind of, I haven't talked to anybody who does like traditional stuff, but I kind of feel like there's this like, I don't, they're not into it,
Well, yeah, because, I mean, for the most part, like I said, the resins, you really have to kind of dial in the resins, you know what I mean? And I think once you like really start understanding like the properties of each resin and how to, really get some nice clean, pieces out of it, and then people are gonna, be, a little more open to working with them. And it seems like every year, new formulations are coming out and things are getting easier. They're getting it as pretty close to the wax, but it's just not quite there yet. And the ones that do have high wax content, it's even takes it's a trial and error to get them to print what you want to print. And you have to go in there and you gotta constantly kind of work with the settings to get what you want to get. So you might print out 4 pieces, all different. 2 of them might print out great, and the other 2, would not. They just, something about it just won't give you, a good burnout. So you got to try other resins with certain style types of designs and everything, depending on what you're doing, and really kind of find, what resins work with certain designs and everything. So it's a little bit of pain in the ass, but to be honest, it's kind of fun too, because once you dial in what works for you, and once you could consistently get those consistent, get the quality out of the designs and the pieces you're 3D printing out, I'm pretty sure it feels pretty damn good. You know what I mean?
My whole experience with 3D has been like you get a 90% there most of the time. That other 10% is that manufacturing refinement. That they've worked that stuff out when you're making large numbers, but when you're like prototyping, you kind of get it there. You're not exactly there. There's always like something. It's just the material.
Yeah, it's like the Tupac piece that we printed out.
Mm-hmm.
It looked good on the screen, right? We're like, oh yeah, this is. But then we printed it out, and being as if I would have had a little more time in the industry, I would have been like, okay, this is not gonna work out because his fingers are too small. So. As you start learning, okay, this is not going to work. So then we know next time to, close his hands into fists, and that's going to get you a good.
There's limitations to the tools you use.
Yeah. And that's, I think, really, to be honest, that's one of the limitations. Even if it would have, printed out okay, I don't think it would have showed up in the cast. You know what I mean? Or if it would have been one of those things where it's like, it would not look right. Good for the size and everything. It'd be too thin. It'd probably end up breaking off. Mm-hmm. And these are all things that you learn as you go through the process of creating jewelry. There's just some things that just are not going to work out. And you learn as you go along. So that you learn how to modify it and make it work.
Yeah, I remember listening to an artist talk at a convention, and he had this whole like seminar about how he designed a ring. So he was designing an engagement ring for his girlfriend.
Okay.
And he was being all secretive about it, getting them. So he had to learn, okay, the measurement of ring. He could make these incredible designs, and he was using ZBrush, which a lot of it's becoming very popular with modern jewelry designers.
What a lot of people use now.
Yeah. And then through the process, you realize, my design's not going to translate to metal because the supports aren't going to be there. How on a software you can have stuff float in air.
Yeah.
But when you have realistic materials, how it gets cast and the whole process, no, it's not gonna. It's gonna collapse on itself. It's kind of what's gonna happen. So he kind of had to learn how the traditional guys do it too, and he made the ring. It came out great. I think he's married now. So
hopefully, right?
Yeah. But it's just like these printers are giving us, a bit of a shortcut here, but at the same time, we still got to learn how they're. I think the design part is speeding up, but we still the physical part is the one we got to like fine tune.
Yeah, no, definitely, because at the end of the day, I mean, it'll look beautiful on the screen, and then you print it out, and it looks like shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It doesn't, and you got to take everything into consideration. Fitment, right? If it's gonna fit right, is it gonna work as a jewelry piece? But that's where I think where 3D printing really excelled is prototyping.
Yeah,
because prototyping before was really expensive. You know what I mean? That's where you're not even close to making the jewelry yet. You're making small changes and everything, and it's already thousands of dollars because they have to, before it was on from what I seen, it was like a small 5-axis machine. You put a block of wax in there, and then they'd cut this, whole piece out of, this piece of wax. Or imagine having to have somebody constantly recutting something out of wax of like, I want to make a change, and then they have to go in there and change it in the wax. And some of these people charge a lot of money per hour to do these pieces,
as they should.
Yeah, it's tedious work.
Well, each one's a handmade sculpture.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but the part that impresses me with these guys, how fast they are.
They've been doing it for years. They must have made thousands of, pieces. I would say maybe not so much here in the States, But once you get into like some of some of the other countries, like China, I think more than China, India. India is very well known for their jewelry making prowess and everything. And some of the smaller countries, I think, like I've dealt with a lot of, well, not a lot, but I dealt with a few people from Bali, and then I've met a few people from other smaller Asian countries where, like Thailand, they're beasts over there. They design some awesome pieces of jewelry by hand and everything. And yeah, they're quick for that one piece. For us, for that one piece we're trying to print out, they have like hand carved like 10 pieces already to go to casting. So there's there's definitely some
their manpower
awesome,
carries some weight.
some awesome hand carving artists in around the world. But I think what ends up happening when you're 3D printing is, as you go kind of figuring everything out, you go learning all the little idiosyncrasies that the 3D printer has. So especially what it could do and what's its kind of ceiling of what it can't do. You know what I mean? And as you go learning all of that, and you start learning, the traditional ways of, jewelry making, you start kind of blending them together, and this whole new kind of industry starts coming out of it. You know what I mean? I mean, for your this is the first ring that you've ever made, designed.
Yeah.
So as you go kind of learning, the fitment of the ring and everything, and sometimes it looks, like we said, looks good on the screen, but when somebody puts it on, doesn't sit quite right. Or, in traditional jewelry, the rings are usually a certain thickness around the band. And
these are all stuff I thought about, but I was like, okay, we'll just go with it.
Yeah, no, definitely. So once you start blending, kind of, both of those and everything together, like the old and the new, and that's when the real magic starts happening, because you can really, once you have that foundation of how to make, the shanks and everything, and how to make it to spec of what, the traditional kind of jewelry, and then you could really start building upon the creative side of everything of what you want to do. But you still have that foundation of like, is this ring going to fit well? You know what I mean? And you could start pushing the boundaries of like sizes and everything to see like, how do you want the ring to fit? And for me in particular, I like big rings. I like big gaudy rings. And I love working with gold. And sometimes you gotta be
making a statement.
Yeah, a statement ring, but you gotta also take into consideration that, if I would love to make, this is the best way I could put it, I would love to make every ring solid, right? Heavy. But it gets uncomfortable, right? You wear a ring and when it's too heavy, it's too big, it gets uncomfortable. And then you start learning about, the hollowing process of how to lighten up rings, but still keep, your design, what you want it to be, but how to save yourself, weight reduction and everything. And all that is stuff that they've been, doing, in the jewelry industry, traditionally. It's like when you get a ring, they're usually hollowed out on the inside and everything. And then, because gold gets pretty pricey. So then once you start learning, the hollowing techniques, but still kind of looks, it looks good and everything like that. You don't want to get it to a point where it's all hollow and it's like, oh, well, and then it's, you like having that weight.
Yeah.
So you start kind of learning those, tricks of the trades and everything like that. And, I tended to be like, no, I'm going to leave all my rings solid. You know what I mean? I don't want to hollow anything. And then you print it out in silver and then you're wearing it and then you're like, dude, this thing's heavy. So then I come back and was like, hey, maybe we could lighten up the ring a little, and then And then that's when you start kind of looking into
Test driving them.
yeah, getting to a point. Not only that, but once you find that middle ground where you could take a little off, but still has that nice weight where you could wear the ring all day. But you got, you feel good when you wear it, but or you're not taking off too much material. You find your sweet spot, and I think that's where, that's where it'd be kind of what I'm kind of working on right now, because the Tigress ring that I did, that ring is like almost 80 grams. You know what I mean? That's the weight of a lot of bracelets.
Okay.
So it's like I have to, learn to hollow it.
That ring is a piece of artwork, though.
Yeah, I love that ring.
Yeah.
That ring is it was my first design, and it holds a special place in my heart. I actually came up with that design when I was dreaming. I was in a very lucid dream, and I always keep most people, if you're a creative type, most people should do this. I keep a pen and a notepad next to me when I sleep, because I dream. A lot of my designs come to me in my dreams. And if sometimes, even if I wait 5-10 minutes, I don't remember them. So right when I wake up, if it's something that I was like, oh, that's a great idea or a concept, I'll sketch it down right away and everything. And then I go back to sleep, and then I wake up, and then I look over, what I have written down. I'm like, oh, this is good. This sucks. I don't know what I was thinking. But sometimes I'll have that one real gem that I'm like, it's a good thing I wrote that down, because I would not remembered it in the future. And there's been times where I've like woken up something, I was like, I'll remember it. I go to sleep and I wake up and I'm like, what was it? And it bums me out, because I could have had something that would probably been like super awesome. You know what I mean? But now I always write down everything that I dream, because the way my mind works, it's weird. It almost looks, if I could explain it, it looks like a chessboard in a way. And then it's all black around, like being in a room that has only like one light source coming down. So it kind of in a way, if I had to explain, it kind of looks like Rhino 3D, right? Where it's all kind of black like that, and it's like a piece that I'm kind of building together in my head, and I'm like, I wish I could do this with my hand. Unfortunately, I don't have those.
You can. It just takes time.
It's just I get so frustrated trying to draw it, because they're just so detailed in my head, and I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to put that on paper like that. But thank God I was given this creativity where I could actually put things together in my brain like that, and I could work with individuals like yourself that could take those ideas and turn them into something that I could work with. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that having that, I'm like, I'll leave the art to the people that know how to do art. I'll just stay on the creativity side. So yeah, I
that's the fun part, though, man.
It's
coming up with the ideas is always the fun part.
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm sure everybody would like to be able just to like, hey, it's a common thing when artists, like in school, I heard all the time, like even a teacher said it, where it's like, I'm here to teach you how to get the idea in your head, from your brain, through your arm, out your hand. That's what he's teaching you how to do. And that was kind of like one of those light bulb moments where it's just like, oh, it's a communication thing between myself and my creativity and the medium basically you're choosing to get it out of. Drawing is basically the easiest way. Not the easy way, but it's anybody can try drawing, and at the end of the day, it's just hours. How many, you want to draw a perfect circle? You got to draw a circle 1,000,000 times, 1,000 times, whatever number, until you start building those muscles for it, and then you start layering those shapes into there. And it's not easy. Not everybody gets it, but at the end of the day, it's not natural. There's people out there with natural talent that just can do it.
Yeah, I've met friends that have told me, by the time there were 4 or 5, they were already drawing. Well, back then they were drawing Ninja Turtles perfectly already. And I actually had a friend that I went to school. His name was Oliver Yambao, And by the time he was in 6th grade, he was, you know, his skills were pretty good. You know what I mean? He was drawing cartoons, comic books, you know, a little bit of everything. You know, like some people are just naturally have that, you know, have that talent.
See, I started later in life. I started when I was like in 18. Basically, college came around, and you're just like pick a career. I was like graphic design.
Yeah, I just want to draw shit for a living. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's you know, with artists and everything, it's a symbiotic relationship. You know what I mean? I need to have people with those skill sets around me to be able to, you know, bring the creativity that I have to life. And you know, it's definitely, it's frustrating. You know, I wish I could, you know, do it myself, because I feel that, you know, I could definitely move a lot quicker with the designs I want to do. But you know, sometimes you just work with the tools that you were given in
Sure.
life.
I mean, like, I met a bunch of artists who are crazy talented but have no management skills. They have no you know, they don't know how to organize a project whatsoever. And then so their talent basically lost until they can figure that part out. You know, they can make great works of art, but if they can't sell it or use it in a...
Yeah, you have to be able to monetize it to be able to live, you know.
Yeah.
What I mean?
And it gets... So there, you know, there's always a balance there, you know.
Yeah, and for the most part, if you would tell me, okay, I give you two choices. You could either have super amazing, you know, drawing skills, or you know, you keep the creativity that you have, you know what I mean? But, you know, you can't have one or the other. I take the creativity every time, you know, because I kind of feel that's where I really excel at, is being able to kind of, you know, create these, you know, these pieces that would, you know, if it wasn't for me, you know, coming up with the ideas, would not be, you know, will not be able to be made. You know, they're like truly, you know, my own, you know, original ideas. Now, do I borrow from things that I see? Of course, everybody does. You know what I mean? Most art is you know, most art is either, you know, borrowed from somebody else and just, you know, there's changed into your own, you know, your own vision of what it is. You know what I mean?
There's this great documentary. You might be able to find it on YouTube. I think I saw it on a different platform. It's called Everything's a Remix. So this guy goes back and does a lot of research on art history, and basically he finds connections to, you know, your most popular art. Okay, yeah, they came up with this great piece, song, movie, you know, story, whatever. And he can link it to like some where that story's been told before. And it's not that it's not an original idea. It's that whatever that original idea was that hit you has been told in a different way or used in a different way, you know? And it's just like everything's a remix. These people were influenced by those artists. And and they were able to make this.
I think one a good example of that is Shakespeare's pretty much, Shakespeare for the most part, his stories have been told by many different people, you know, in many different type of ways.
Romeo and Juliet. How many?
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's I definitely see, you know, a lot of art that you know, was taken from other art and just kind of, you know, turned into, you know, their vision. And you know, I mean, for the most part, that's where creativity comes from, you know, especially this day and age and everything with, you know, the internet and everything. You go on there, and even if you don't think you're doing it subconsciously, you know, you're being influenced by what you're seeing, and you're like, oh, you come up with this great idea, like, oh man, I got this great idea, you know, but you've been, you know, looking at, you know, whatever jewelry for the last 3 hours, and you're taking in, you know, all this visual stimulus, and, you know, you put something down like, oh yeah, this is a great original piece, but you know, you're influenced by pieces that other people are making. But as long as you could take that in and create, you know, use it to create your original pieces, I see nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
you know,
no, look, at the end of the day, it's just like, it's got to be either different. Something can influence you.
Yeah.
But you can't like take Mickey Mouse and redraw him and say, "Hey, I made,"
And plenty of people have.
Yeah, they
plenty
have.
of people have done that with
But then you kind of enter into that underground art where it's like, yeah, we know you're doing it,
Yeah.
and we're cool, and that we like the fact that you're doing it.
I think I think a good example of that was a clothing company called Crooks and Castles.
Mhm.
Came out a couple of years ago, and they had the Versace logo that they were using, but they put a bandana on the logo's face, so they had modified it 50% from the original, so they were able to trademark that. Right now, it's Versace's logo,
Yeah.
but because 50% of it was now covered by a bandana, they made it their own logo, and they made millions of dollars, off it, and their whole thing was we stole this logo, we changed it, now it's our logo. And that was pretty cool too. You know what I mean? That was very creative of them, and if they if they were taken to court, I don't know if they did or anything, but as long as you change something 50% from the original, right, and then it becomes an original piece of art that's yours. So it's like
it's a gray area.
Yeah, so if you take Mickey Mouse, right, and you cut him in half, and then you change everything out, you're like, this is my new logo. You
can try that. I guarantee Disney's gonna come after you.
Yeah, they're known for that too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't mess around with Disney, because they definitely have very aggressive lawyers.
I'm pretty sure they have lawyers that just do this and they're bored looking for somebody
Well, not bored. They get paid a lot of money,
but it's just like
to sniff people out that are ripping off their art. Yeah, no, definitely.
And it's just one of those. I remember I saw a video of it was at a convention, and the guy was a lawyer, and he was a copyright lawyer, and he talked about how this works. And at the end of the day, the law is set up for you can use it, but the other person can always come after you too.
Yeah.
So it's like
most companies, if you do it, most big companies will first send you a cease and desist letter before they come after you financially. Now, if you don't stop and you keep going, and then, you're going to find yourself in court, and they have a lot of money and they have a lot of lawyers. So, I'd say, once you receive that first letter, you know what I mean? If you know that you're just blatantly ripping them off, just call it a day, and, move on to the next company, I guess.
So where do you see the project going next for us on this one?
Well, to be honest, we have to, I think before we move forward, we have to dial in the
design.
The design we'll definitely modify the design. We said, we went over some of the changes that I think we need to make and everything. It's definitely very heavy as well. If I think it's probably like about 60 grams or so, a little more. So we could definitely lighten up the weight.
It feels heavy just being held in your hand.
Yeah, and we need to keep doing our R&R with the resin, and see if we could get
There's a few brands out there. I'm like wondering if we can try on this printer.
Yeah, no, well, that's the thing. We could try different resins. We just have to manually input their whatever their specifications for it. So yeah, we could definitely do that. You know what I mean? But I like to try maybe a couple of different type of pieces. Hopefully, as I start buying this equipment within the next month or so, maybe a month and a half.
That's pretty fast.
We could, start doing our own little, R&R at the house and start casting our own pieces out. And I think, the casting, the pieces that we're gonna be casting, we'll just try a couple different style of pieces, and see what happens.
Sure. After seeing this, I'm kind of curious what other shapes we can get. It's just like,
well, that's the great thing about 3D printing. Fuck, the world's your oyster. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It may or may not work, but the fun part about it is trying it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think what's going to make a big difference is going to be the investment that we use.
What is
right?
it? What is investment?
Investment is like a powder, right? It's a powder that actually makes up that you put in the flask or the crucible that makes up the
cast.
the cast
Okay.
design. So when you burn it out, it's what leaves that hollow imprint in there that you.
So they got high qualities.
Well, not high quality, but they have one specifically for resins.
Oh, okay.
So they don't use. I'm pretty sure they don't use that at the casting houses in downtown. They use whatever they use, but they make specific,
So you're gonna get basically an oven,
investment that we could use,
an oven, and then machine to make the casting.
Yeah. I've been pricing everything out, and it's within, at least
you're comfortable
within the price that I feel I could afford to, to start making.
How big is the equipment?
The casting would be it'll be a vacuum casting setup. I mean, we would be able to fit it on that countertop right there. Yeah.
So it's like microwave little oven kind of.
Yeah, kind of like a little oven.
Okay.
Let's say, or like better said, maybe like a microwave,
Okay.
a big one of those old big microwaves. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I think we pretty much covered everything on this project so far. We made a ring, so that's great. We're all excited about it. Herman couldn't be here today. He had a prior engagement. Where we go from here now is, I guess
Just dialing it in.
Yeah.
Right now, we're just gonna be doing, R&D.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
then you getting
trying
that-
to dial everything in and get the best, the best.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already getting
casting.
ideas on how to basically just change this, but not change the look of it. you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely need to do some some modification
Mhm.
to the design as it stands right now, just to try to get it, make it easier to do the finishing on
Sure.
on the design, because
Like if you're doing 20 of these,
yeah, because you have to go in there by hand into all the small crevices and clean everything out, and that after a while that becomes very tedious, and it's very time consuming.
Yeah.
Where if we modify the design, we can make it so we save ourselves a couple of hours.
Sure. No, I could see it now. I'm just in my hand, I could see where the little issues are going to be for that part of it.
Yeah.
And I'm getting ideas on how to address it too, because like over here we got on the sides look beautiful. I mean, they came out real clean, and if we can get that level on this face here, the face will pop.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it looks great right now.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, like in the eyes and some of the smaller places, it's when you're in there, you're to have like these tiny little pieces and you're trying to polish everything up.
Yeah.
That's where it starts getting time consuming, and that's where you got to kind of modify the design so we could just polish it up, clean it up, and get to the next piece. And especially if we're going to be selling them for for retail,
Mm-hmm.
we have to be
They're gonna have their like standards to.
we have to be able to if we're to be able to clean them up and bring them to market quicker, because if we're getting 5, 10, 20 pieces a month, who knows, maybe even more,
Cool.
100 pieces.
All right, guys, we're moving forward everybody's excited on the project. We got to do a little more work, but on the next one, I'm hoping to have basically this more refined and basically just the next step here. So where can people find you, Jay?
If you're on Instagram, J Mogul Designs, and that's JMOGUL Designs with an S at the end.
Okay, and you can find me at The Art of Juan C on Instagram here. Thanks, guys. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Thanks for having me.